Hopefully we're live. Hey, good morning, folks, wherever you are out there. Welcome. You are listening to Charge Life Podcast. I am Joseph Barletta. This is where we discuss EVs and all things EV charging. So glad you could pull over and mark with us today. So let's get plugged in. Hey, look, today's episode is all about Tesla opening up Powerwall 3 orders. So what do you need to know? You're going to love this one. Before we begin today's episode, it's brought to you by Smart Charge America. Since 2007, Smart Charge America has installed tens of thousands of EV charging stations nationwide, and they can do the same for you today. Whether for the home, commercial, or service, let their team of expert installation specialists guide you to the best charging solution for your electric car. After all, if you can't charge, you can't drive. Visit smartchargeamerica.com today to get started. Okay, special guest speaker today in the house, Mr. David Laderberg, Vice President of Smart Charge America. He's going to basically inform us a little bit more, go into a lot more in depth with regards to the Powerwall 3 and, kind of about basically how it almost compares to Powerwall 2, maybe Powerwall Plus. And kind of the difference and nuances between the two. But hey, look, today's episodes, Tesla opens up Powerwall 3 orders. And so what do we feel that you need to know before go ahead and executing on that order? So, David, tell us a little bit more about, I guess, the storage comparison. If you want to look at the storage breakdown against all three, let's say Powerwall 3, Powerwall 2, and Powerwall Plus, are there any storage differences or what? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I think overall, like when I look at the Powerwall 3, just taking a step back, what I see so far is something that's designed to be easier to install, right? So it makes a lower cost, quicker to install, and just easier on the design side as well. And also to integrate a lot of the code requirements, so NEC code requirements that we're seeing on battery and solar, to integrate those capabilities into the unit itself, make it a much easier and lower cost to install. So rather than, say, having to install a separate rapid shutdown system, it's all integrated into the box itself, and it's lockable, and it meets all the requirements, and it's been tested per code to meet all those requirements. So that's just one example of many that they integrated all that in there to make it quicker, easier, scalable, and also handle many more scenarios that previously you would have issues with or would end up costing a lot more. Now are cost less. So in other words, these are certainly things that would help a lot of people out to get Powerwall and solar into their home. It's not going to solve every situation necessarily. There are some things that it doesn't do, that you see other systems can do.
We'll talk about those here.
Yeah. But I mean, overall, I mean, the actual capacity of the system is, looking at the same. It's 13.5, kilowatt hour on the actual capacity. The biggest thing is that how much power it can provide is significantly increased. Big time. We're talking like previously with the Powerwall 2, you're looking at about 5 kilowatt continuous and about a 7 kilowatt peak. Now we're looking at far in excess of that. So it's actually up to a maximum discharge power of about 11.5 kilowatt capability, which is right on par with PowerShare coming from a Cybertruck.
That's right.
So it's powerful, 11.5 kilowatt.
Do you find it different? Do you find it odd that they came out with the Power 3 at the same exact time PowerShare drops with the Cybertruck with the 11.5? Do you find it odd?
Could there be
complementary
similar hardware maybe going into it? Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised with it, but I think it's great. I mean, 11.5 kilowatt capability output. And also another thing is that we see often is we talked about on our PowerShare episode, which you definitely check that out, is that the ability for motor startup, which sounds kind of arbitrary. Like I don't have any motors in my home, got it, but AC compressors, those are a motor. And they take a lot of power to get started. So when they go from off to on, there's a large draw of electricity that happens. And the ability for the Powerwall 3 to handle that is dramatically better than any other previous Powerwall at all. Gotcha. So we're talking 185 amps LRA, which is the rating that's used to quantify that draw of electricity when that motor starts up. So 185 LRA, I haven't seen an AC.
Basically covers everything. It covers 5 ton, like whatever beyond that.
Yeah, anyone that I've seen, it covers it. So it's just kind of take it, you're covered, you're good to go, out the door, and that's what I love about it.
So what does LRA stand for our audience members?
Yeah, it stands for locked rotor amps. Okay. So it just means that the actual electric motor is locked from a dead stop. And if you turn it on and it tries to pull power to get going, how much power, would that be? And in this
Requires
case,
it to get it going.
it's up to 185 amps, the max that it can handle, which is, I mean, I was just looking at a customer who we're doing sizing right before this webcast, and I was looking, and it was 152.5 LRA on their AC.
Oh, nice.
Right, so it's pretty high, but I mean, that's among some of 150, 160 is the
Right.
highest I've ever seen.
So that piece of equipment would not be able to be backed up by the Powerwall 2 or the Powerwall Plus, only on the Powerwall 3.
Well, yeah, I mean, but there's a way to get around it. I mean, there's either additional hardware I'd have to install, so
Correct.
technically I could, or I just have to install more Powerwalls, which, you know, when I have to go back to a customer and tell them, hey, look, it's like $500 more, or oops, it's like $8,000 or $9,000 more because there's another Powerwall you have to purchase now. Like, I don't want to have to give that answer. I'd rather just be like, yeah, I got you covered, right? And that's what people want to hear too. So that I like that.
Makes sense. On the pricing wise, now I just recently visited the Tesla website on the Powerwall. It seems like they're only offering Powerwall 3 from purchasing, and then it's at $8,400 a pop on each one. They're giving like some sort of, you know, considerable discount, I guess, on I guess if you buy more, you get a little discount. If you are adding to an existing setup, you get a little discount on that end. But tell us from your experience from Powerwall 2, Powerwall Plus, and now Powerwall 3, has the pricing also been, you know, kind of similar, or have they fluctuated up and down, you know, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of Powerwalls out there, so it's a little confusing, you know, to the layperson. And I mean, heck, even me, I'm doing all the training, and sometimes I'm like, wait, hold on a sec, why does this exist, or why is it like that? But I liken Powerwall 3 most closely to Powerwall Plus. And Powerwall Plus is a product that is specifically designed to be installed with solar. So if you don't have solar, you're not going to be just, hey, give me Powerwall 3. Although technically they do give you provisions that, hey, if someone's planning on getting solar eventually, just get Powerwall 3.
Right.
And you'll be ready to, all you got to do is get the panels mounted and then wired up to the Powerwall. And then you're good to go. So it is possible technically to get it prior, but the distribution model right now, by all accounts, is that it's either you're ordering solar and Powerwall from Tesla directly, and they're designing it and installing it, or you're going to a Tesla certified solar and Powerwall installer, and you know you'll get solar and Powerwall from them. So you know technically we can order them now immediately.
Right.
They probably won't start shipping for like a month or two, from what I see. There's a back order, kind of a little bit of lead time on that front. But that seems to be the distribution model right now.
So is Tesla still offering the Powerwall 2 and the Powerwall Plus in addition to the Powerwall 3, or are they just no longer selling that? It depends on, I guess, the customer situation, what the I guess scope of work on the installation. That's why they're always saying speak to one of our analysts, or you know, and we'll be able to. You know.
Yeah, my take right now is they're going to do Powerwall 3 where it makes sense and it's necessary to do it, like the LRA on an AC unit. It's a good example. Like, all right, perfect. Yeah, let's do Powerwall 3. If not, I mean, they have Powerwall Plus still, and that can absolutely meet the needs of a lot of customers. It's the same capacity. Like, so from that perspective, you know, some customers still literally won't even know the difference between a Powerwall Plus and Powerwall 3. They won't experience any type of, actual performance difference or duration of outage capability. So it's not massive at least from that perspective specifically. So, you know, I wouldn't get too caught up in it. Powerwall 2 still makes sense for a lot of cases, especially like where you're adding Powerwall to an existing solar setup. You get Powerwall 2. You're not getting Powerwall 3. Doesn't make sense. In fact, Powerwall 3 isn't compatible with other solar setups. It's not. It will not work or interact with it. Powerwall 2 is perfectly designed to do that. And that's what a good use case for that is. So again, I kind of look at it as they're different flavors of Powerwall. It's not obvious when you start getting iterations like 2 and 3. You think, well, 3 is the best. It's the latest, duh, right? But that's not the case here. I think there's specific use cases, although I do believe that Powerwall 3 will eventually probably replace some of these previous products. It has the potential to do that. It's not there today. But, you know, I think it makes sense to, you know, you got to think Tesla covers so many regions. It's not just North America. It's not just Europe. I mean, they've got Australia, they've got Asia Pacific. They have all these places they want to cover. They all have different codes and different requirements and different UL, underwriter laboratory requirements to meet. So we have US UL and NEC here in the US that we're trying to meet. And then, of course, you're in California, you get the California Electric Code, like all these other variations all throughout different states, counties, districts that you're trying to conform to. Tesla's trying to make all of them happy. So I think, we'll still see multiple products for a little bit of time. But that's where you go to your Tesla certified installer.
Correct.
that's what's important. We're getting the training that we need. Tesla, of course, they have their own teams that can help you with that as well, and that's who I'd call.
All right. So, I mean, if you're looking at 8,400 for the Powerwall 3, like wasn't the Powerwall 2 like 7,500 or like didn't it go like Powerwall Plus was similar, or was it went from 75 to 8 grand or something like that? Do you recall some of the pricing? It changes and it ebbs and flows so much.
It does. It ebbs and flows,
Right.
and it's changed over time. It also probably changes depending on how many you have. And if you go to the Tesla website right now, go to the energy portion and say, hey, I want to order Powerwall, and you say I want 2 or 3. If you change your answer right there, that'll change the price per Powerwall. Right. If you say I already have Powerwall, that changes the price immediately. That's right. Which is not unusual. I kind of expect that anyways. It's very transparent. It's great. You can see right then and there. It's not, you can't hide from it. Those are the pricing. But I've seen it ebb and flow. But I think the Powerwall 3 it's an efficient design too, from just the cost from Tesla, right? Because there's certain elements they were able to eliminate parts that previously were on Powerwall 2 or Powerwall Plus that's just not needed anymore. Right. It's all integrated too. Having like a single integrated system from a code and installation perspective is advantageous, right? So, but it's a little bit bigger, a little chunkier, I guess, so to speak.
Little. I mean, that brings us to our next part is like dimensions of weight. So we know that the Powerwall 3 is a little smaller of a compact form. I think it's maybe somewhere like 4 or 5% smaller. I don't know. But it is a little bit wider. So it comes off the wall a little bit. When we're installing it on the wall, it extends off the wall about another 2 inches. It's a little bit wider. But one of the more interesting things that I discovered when I was doing this is, Powerwall 2 is about 251 pounds. That's a lot. Okay. We're putting that on your wall. Sometimes we're putting multiple on your wall, but we would generally want to stack those on the ground using kind of the ground stack formation. The Powerwall Plus with the solar inverter, combined with the Powerwall, it's 344 pounds. Like that's extremely heavy. And you see these on the side of homes with solar panels, and it really is impressive just knowing the amount of weight that's coming off of that bracketing system. And then of course your Powerwall 3 is coming in about 36 pounds heavier than the Powerwall 2 at 287. So it's kind of like right in the middle. It's about it's just not as light as Powerwall 2, but not as heavy as both of those combined with Powerwall Plus. So we do see some of the weight there. Now, from an installer's perspective, you have to keep your guys healthy. You can't have these guys throwing out their backs, and it's not like a charger where I can have one guy just move the box, because it's a small charger. Like these things are very heavy. Sometimes they need multiple guys carrying it and and transporting it and moving it around the house, so forth and so on. So tell us a little bit about, I guess, the importance of having the right equipment when you're doing this, and that's why you really want to make sure that you're having an actual certified electrical contractor that knows this stuff, that has the right equipment, that can move these things around because of that weight factor. And taking into account, some of these garages are pretty old. I don't know about the studs or anything like that, but tell us a little bit about the equipment and what you've seen in your day with regards to installing these.
Yeah, I mean, these things are very heavy. They're awkward. They're just massive, right? I mean, so that you have to know what you're doing with this. Tesla even designed a specific dolly or lifting system for Powerwall and what they use internally, and I really like it. We don't use that. We have our own solution that we've utilized. But very similar. Honestly, it's the same idea, just slightly different flavor, I guess, if you will. But you have to lift that safely and correctly. And that also fastening to a wall, you have to use very specific hardware. It must be embedded into the stud in a certain way, a certain spot. So it's like there's a lot that goes into that. And so that's extremely important. You can't just have anyone DIY this. It's not possible. You can't just hand it to whoever electrician that you know and you love, and you say, hey, Rick, will you do this for me, bud? My electrician. Yeah, no, they'll have very difficult time, and it honestly won't work. There's a lot that we have to do to be able to do this safely, not only to also make it safe for your home and for it to be successfully working over a long period of time, but also, to be able to get the Tesla warranty, right? I mean, so this 10-year warranty on this, you want that to be true. And Tesla's been really great about their warranty too, by the way. I mean, we've had some installs that we did a couple of years ago. All of a sudden, Tesla reaches out to us directly and says, hey, we have a Powerwall that needs to be replaced at this customer site, and we installed it. And, they just send us the Powerwall immediately and say, hey, we need to get this done. And they pay us to do it. And customer, we call the customer to go coordinate. They're like, yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't even know what you're talking about. I didn't know I had any issues. Then Tesla proactively found and saw the issue, identified it, and said, hey, this is what we need to do. All right, call Smart Charge. They're the installer of record, and we're going to have them go out and do it. And we did it. And sure enough, everything's great. It's covered under warranty, and that's extremely important. And so, that's what I like a lot about Tesla. They're extremely proactive. They really are true to their word. And I think they've come out with a phenomenal product that, it's going to be a beast to put up on the wall, but it's worth it. And, it's a lot of batteries. It's a lot of batteries.
Now, speaking of batteries, we know that the battery chemistry on the Powerwall Plus and the Powerwall 2 were that of the cylindrical 2170s, right? 2170 cells. But from what I'm gathering, that was nickel, magnesium, cobalt, NMC battery, chemistry. From what I'm gathering is that Tesla has moved from that to LFP batteries using prismatic cells inside this Powerwall 3. Have you heard much about the difference in?
I haven't, but I wouldn't be surprised considering the LRA, and what it's capable of doing. And, that's what's called the C value for a battery, which is how much power can it, give out versus how much it takes in, and the speed or rate at which that power can be accessed, inside the storage itself. So that's something it's kind of a big deal to change something like that. So for it to change so drastically compared to Powerwall 2 is, makes me think, so they're doing something different, to make that happen. So that wouldn't surprise me.
Interesting. Now, there is stuff when it comes to like stackable. Like how many of these Powerwalls can you stack up in your house? What does that mean? So from what we're seeing, Powerwall 2 stackable, you can stack up to 10 units, at a time with, per gateway. I think you can stack more, but you just have to get more gateways. And I'm not too sure how all of that. I don't even think we've done anything more than 10 at a single site. So it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on that. But then also, the Powerwall Plus 4 stackable is the max. Powerwall 3 4 stackable is the max. What are some of the limitations on that, and what are they getting? What are they gearing towards? Because if I have a Powerwall 2 and I can stack 10 of these bad boys, that gives me 13.5 times 10. That's 135 kW. That's almost a Tesla Cybertruck riding around. I mean, that's a lot. That's what I want, right? If I have a large house and I want that excess time for that backup. But then you're telling me, man, I can only stack 4 of these with the Powerwall Plus and the Powerwall 3. I would imagine the stackability is because those units will tend to work complementary with solar systems, where solar systems are constantly recharging your battery. So you don't need as many as you would otherwise with a Powerwall 2, where you may not have solar and it's just there as a battery backup for your house in case the grid goes down. And once it goes out, that's it, you're done. You got to go move somewhere until the grid comes back on, right? Am I getting that? That's probably why Tesla's put a limitation on the stackable order on these?
I think there's a couple of reasons. So let's also talk terminology. Start with stackable, right? So just mounting configuration alone. Stacked configuration is what Tesla calls where we can put, say, a battery on your wall. So if this is the wall, I can put the battery right on it, but I can also put another battery right behind it, assuming it's actually being supported by the floor below. So that's one form of, let's call it stacking, right? And you can do that with Powerwall 2, absolutely. But currently, you cannot do that with Powerwall 3. So it was kind of a nice way for us to be able to, just depending on the layout of a garage or wherever we're mounting it, we can, if it's easier to have space, just go out from the wall, just use that. We can have 3 of them stacked up, or we're putting them each on the wall. And that can be problematic too, because we got to keep it away from windows. We need to keep it away, can't be on the bedroom. Right? There's specific places we can and cannot put these batteries. So having that flexibility is actually extremely valuable. And then plus there's venting requirements. We can't put them too close to each other on the wall because there's inlets and outlets. That's for the cooling and thermal management system. So that's part of that stacking. And then beyond that, it's about how many can you have connected to each other. So part of it too, I mean, one of the benefits of Powerwall 3 is that you can have multiple there. You can have multiple Power 2 up to 10, but Powerwall 3 has the ability to cover so much more, higher draw and higher power output. That was one of the reasons we do a lot of Powerwall 2, like multiple, like 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. It's not as capacity is definitely a big piece of that, but a lot of times, more often than not, we were doing it because of just be able to handle the AC loads and the large loads of the house. But the reality is, we're still limited to a 200 amp service. If you have like this big house, I mean, a lot of big houses have a 400 amp service, 600. I was just looking at one that was an 800 amp service.
Wow.
It's a massive house, 8,000 square feet. So with that situation, in this case, this 800 amp, I can only cover one gateway or one, set of Powerwalls for each one of those, and they're not interacting, meaning that if the grid does go out, only one of those kind of 200 amp panels in that home will be covered, will be backed up. That's true for PowerShare. It's true for Powerwall 2. That's just how it is. So they didn't, that's such a relatively small percent of the houses out there, right? There's certainly those people that have money to pay for things like this, maybe, but Tesla designed it for a majority of America. In this case, for North American release, that's 200 amp panel or less, which it can absolutely handle. 200 is the max. So if you have 225 or more, either we can downsize it based on load calculation that allows us to do that. But otherwise, 4 is a lot. I think it will be expandable over time with different configurations. But currently, it's you're looking at 4 as the max, and I find it'll be more than adequate. I've already seen some installs at some Tesla employees' houses that they did early on that had 4 Powerwall 3s on it, and they're using solar. I think you can do up to 20 kilowatt of solar, DC solar on per Powerwall 3, which is amazing, right? But they have 4 of them. They're all connected DC to DC, which is phenomenal too as well. And it's just extremely efficient, which is, I think, one of the things I'm most
7.5% efficient.
Yeah, because you can take DC from the solar, put it directly into the battery. That's just what's groundbreaking, game changer right there. Because otherwise it's going, like in the case of my house, I have a separate solar inverter. So the solar goes from DC to AC, and then from AC over to my Powerwalls to be stored. And then that has to take that from AC to DC and put it back into the battery. So that's twice being converted. Then when I want to get access to that stored energy, it has to convert again. DC to AC, so then I can access it. Right. Which is now we got 3 conversions happening. Even the most efficient conversion out there, you're losing a lot of capacity because of that, which is that's costly, and you don't want that to happen. You spend a lot of money on the solar and all that efficiency, all that capability. You want it to be really efficient. Powerwall 3 does that.
Okay, so interesting. So Powerwall 3, 11.5 kW times 4 gives you what, 46 kW? Whereas if you had the Powerwall 2 at 5.5 times 10 gives you 55 kW. So yeah, you're only 9 kW short, but man, you're a lot cheaper. You don't have to do a lot, a lot more. I guess at some point it's kind of like, well, why don't you have a 600-mile battery pack for your Teslas? Well, because you're not going to be using 600 miles, whatever. So, maybe they found that sweet spot at that 46 kW where you bundle them all together.
Well, it's 200 amp service right there. So that's 160 amp, which is continuous times 240. I mean, that's more than covers that with 4. You don't really need more. It'd just be capacity at that point to have more storage. I don't know, just buy power, like a Cybertruck. Just get the power.
Just buy a Cybertruck.
Yeah, you get 9.4 Powerwall 2s equivalent. I mean, that's amazing.
Well, so speaking of that, Powerwall 3 cannot be added to any other existing Powerwall 2 or Powerwall Plus setup. Is that correct?
That is correct.
But you can add, and that's what we're talking about, stackable. You can add more of the Powerwall 2s, depending on how many you have, and you could add more, Powerwall Pluses. If you have 2, you can add 2 more, but that's it. You're maxed, right? But you cannot commingle or anything like that. Once you have Powerwall 3, that's it. You're married to Powerwall 3. You can't mix Powerwall 3 with Powerwall 2 or Powerwall Plus, right?
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. I would think that you could mix Powerwall 3 with Powerwall Powerwall Plus, but maybe not 2 because it doesn't have the inverter. But man,
I think it would make sense more for Powerwall 3 to be expandable with Powerwall 2. I could see that happening, but the fact that you want this DC coupled system that's not having to convert in order to take advantage of those capabilities. So that's one of the great things about Powerwall 3. So because the way I see it is such a great leap in its the way that it works and functionality of it. You wouldn't want to mix it with the old stuff because it wouldn't really be as great. I mean, I don't like
Planned
that.
obsolescence.
Yeah, no one. I know, right? Hey, why did you design it this way? I spent all this money on Powerwall 2. I can't get Powerwall 3. What the heck, Tesla? No. I mean, they made such a massive leap in capability that it's kind of like mixing your 4K color TV with the black and white tube TVs. What? Why would you have both in the same room? That's
good
insane.
Analogy. I like that one.
That's just such a big leap.
I like it. Hey guys, go ahead and click the thumbs up icon if you can. The Google or the YouTube algorithm, it's pretty much AI at this point. So whatever you can do to help us out, hopefully we're not talking to robots, but if you can and you're a machine, go ahead and hit that thumbs up icon. We'd love to help the AI out there. All right, so form factor, we know that we talked about the hybrid inverter that it has in there, and you talked about the 20 kW on the max solar on that, which is great. On the we talked about the compatibility. So you mentioned briefly earlier, Powerwall 3 is compatible with existing solar, right?
So let's say you have solar today.
Yes.
Right? Like I just say my house, I have solar inverters. It will not interact with your existing solar inverters.
So you have to take the solar inverters down and then just go straight to the...
And it has to be a string inverter, right? Because there's also,
Okay.
micro inverters and DC optimizers that's not working with Powerwall 3.
So
it's not how it works.
Just string.
So if you have existing string inverters, then you can take that and get rid of your existing inverter and then plug those solar panels directly into the Powerwall 3. That's the way you would do that.
What if you didn't want to get rid of your inverters? Then you would do the Powerwall Plus?
You would just do Powerwall 2. That's what Powerwall 2 is for.
That's it.
Really?
That's it. So Tesla has the software on the back end to make it all work the same, but that's one of the things I did not know, that you would have to get rid of your existing inverters just to put the type of system in. So everything is a little bit more efficient, I would imagine. That's the reason why.
Way more efficient. I mean, here's in my case, like I have inverters that were installed in 2015. I'm getting up to the 10-year mark, which the warranty is going to be up, and I'm told like the usable life of those inverters is about 10 years.
Wow.
I envision that I'll probably get rid of those inverters, and I might just get a Powerwall 3, right? But I also have Powerwall 2 already, but that's not compatible with Powerwall 3, so I'm a little I don't know what to do. I'd love for it to be compatible with Powerwall 2, but I see huge benefits of Powerwall 3. Really
Sell your Powerwall 2s on the open market. On the LRAs, you mentioned this, and I want to really hone in on, like, this is what installers feel. This is what the pain that we feel when customers come to us and they want us to back their entire house, and then we look at all the service labels and the tags on all of your appliances, and we're like, we're not able to do that because of this LRA thing. We're running into it with the Tesla PowerShare. With the Cybertruck guys, we've always ran into it with the customers for the Powerwalls. Basically, LRA it could be that limiting factor on whether or not that appliance itself is able to be put into your critical backup load, center, where whenever the grid does go down, your Powerwalls kick in, boom, you're powered. But because that 5-ton is just too much on the LRA, we wasn't able to really put that into the backup equation. So, your other 2 AC units work in this section of the house, but your main one doesn't. So good luck. It's like, can't do anything for you, right?
There's always a workaround though. So we have what's called a soft start device, which is specifically designed so, that large draw that happens in the event of that AC starting up, it basically absorbs that draw.
Like a surge protector. Maybe surge absorber.
A little bit of the opposite, because it's a lack, it's drawing additional amps. So, but it softens that blow to the point where it's no longer 152 LRA for that AC. Now it's effectively cut down to like an 80 amp LRA, right? And that makes it work. That's our workaround. And that's early on with the Powerwall 2 when we started installing that was years ago. The LRA capability was very limited on the early Powerwall 2s. So we were installing actually a fair bit of soft start devices, which, in some cases it's very easy to do that. And depending on where you live, maybe can only be installed by a licensed HVAC expert. Right? So you have to be, just like we're licensed as electricians, by the state or the authority, they have to be licensed as well. It's very common. So, in that case, you're working on an HVAC system, you have to be licensed for it. Certainly electricians are capable of doing that. So, in those cases, we're checking all that code, but we're doing it, getting it installed. It's working. And then Powerwall 2 was iterated on and made capable of much higher LRA. So it really eliminated that in a lot of cases. We no longer needed to install the soft starts.
Wait, so the Powerwall 2 was at 106 on the LRA. Now Powerwall Plus was a little bit higher, right? I think that was at 118. But the Powerwall 3, how many is that? Is the LRA? Did it increase to?
Yeah, it's 185.
Okay, so it did increase.
LRA. And, it's additive, though, too. So there's a lot of cases where someone got like one Powerwall 2. Maybe it's, depending on the iteration of Powerwall 2, it's limited to, say, 88 LRA. And if they had one that was, maybe their AC is 120 LRA on the rating, if we just add a separate second Powerwall 2, all of a sudden we could actually handle it. So it's additive. So if it's 88 and then all of a sudden it's, we're
but that's where you talked about it. Maybe an extra $500 or an extra $9,000. Like, oof, that's a big tough.
So it's like we can solve it, or we can do a soft start, or we can do more Powerwalls.
So there are multiple solutions, but
yeah, there's multiple solutions, but they cost more money. And I don't like, obviously as an installer and designer, we don't want to have to say, hey, sorry, more money will solve this expensive thing already that people probably saved for, they've been wanting for a long time. They finally got to that point, and now we have to say it's more. But there's also tough situations we come across. I mean, there was a gentleman, and this is kind of similar to you too, when we did Powerwall, but the gentleman I was just talking to, he has, kind of a little more rural located property. He has an electric pole that's at the edge of the property, and that's where he's got the electric meter and the service disconnect right there. But it also happens to have his the breaker to his well pump. So that's how it gets water for his house.
Same exact setup I have.
And then maybe 100, 150 feet, then like south of there is the house, right? And that's where all the other circuits are. But with the case of Powerwall or PowerShare, everything needs to be downstream of the gateway. The gateway is the islanding control. That's where it cuts off everything from the grid. So everything must be downstream of the Powerwall. Otherwise, it will not receive backup power. But in the case of, if we're going to have to and need to mount that Powerwall or the gateway and Powerwalls on the home, now we have to refeed that circuit that's 100, 150 feet all the way to the edge of the property, all the way back. We have to run a new underground, 20-inch deep trench all the way back to the main property. And we have to put conduit in there. We have to pull wire through, completely refeed the circuit for that well pump in order for it to receive power in the event of a failure. And I literally had a conversation just like an hour before, this recording, explaining to the gentleman, because that's what he really wanted. You don't want, the power goes out, you got heat, you got AC, you got everything, fridge is running, and you got no water. Like that's heartbreaking. Like you need water, right? I mean, septic is working. Okay, at least that's not backing up. That could be pretty bad, but still, like you want water. And I totally was like, man, and it was
like,
sad.
We're not doing this unless you have water.
Yeah. And the guy, he built the house only a few years ago, and he literally paid more money to have that service put underground rather than have an overhead line coming from the pole to his home. Right. And so he paid a lot extra money to have that trench done, but they didn't put extra conduit in it. And that's what I tell anyone. Hey, if this is one thing you learn right now, if you put anything underground on your property, you did any new conduit, whatever it is, throw an extra stick or two of conduit that costs like barely anything. Just to put spare oversized conduit there, just in case for future. You just never know. And it's so expensive to dig that up later.
Future-proof and oversized, please. Pennies on the dollar if you do it at that point. As opposed to waiting and having to retrench all of it.
Yeah, and in your case, we had to retrench it all, and that was a big thing. Went across your driveway in this case, and
tear that up.
It's no fun. You just do it the right way. Yeah.
Okay, so warranty-wise, you mentioned 10 years, and I think that's both Powerwall 2, Powerwall 3, all of them, right? And so do you have to have the system installed by a Tesla certified installer in order to qualify for the warranty?
Absolutely.
Okay.
No exception. Honestly, you can't even get it working without a Tesla certified installer.
Right. Because of the software on the back end.
Software, like we have to do software update, we have to commission it, set certain settings. All that has to be done.
Okay.
It's not as though anyone could just download an app and just figure it out. It's not possible. You have to have credentials, training, and everything to be able to do that.
Now, the interesting thing on the Powerwalls is the 30% tax credit that you still get for installing that particular unit. That is still feasible, I believe, from 2023 to 2032.
Yep. Talk with your tax professional, see if you qualify. We're not tax professionals, so please, everyone qualifies differently. Definitely talk about that with your people but absolutely, it's still out there. You can take advantage of it.
Now, the ease of installation from installing a Powerwall 2 or Powerwall 2 Plus or Powerwall Plus as opposed to a Powerwall 3. You're saying it's a lot easier on the installers. It's a little bit heavier, but overall, you're not having to deal with multiple components. You're not having to deal with, running wires, connecting to, and all that stuff. It's a one block. Wires go in, wires go out. It's a lot easier for installers wise for us to be able to put. It probably is a lot faster, which ultimately will lead to a cheaper install for the customer. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, and there's a lot of situations where this is going to be a game changer as far as, again, how much equipment we need to install, where it needs to be installed. But there's also some scenarios that I'm a little nervous about. Like, I'll give you an example, like in Austin Energy Territory. It's a local municipal-owned utility here in Austin, Texas. They allow you to do solar, part of their distributed generation program. But in order to do that, you have to have a separate utility meter installed to connect that solar. So in other words, they have a meter there that's going to track separately just the solar production. And you are basically selling that back to them at a specific rate. Yes, you might use that power, but effectively, like, and this is again behind the main utility meter, that separate meter will do that, but you can't do that with Powerwall 3. Powerwall, that power goes from the solar panels directly into the Powerwall 3 inverter, and there's no way to separately, do that meter as Austin Energy defines and specifically says you need to do it. So how can we do that with Powerwall 3? Or is that just completely get rid of it in that scenario? And I know there's other utilities that do it that way. Not everyone, but there are a number of utilities that have separate meters required for just the solar production, solar output. So that's something that, it solves a lot of problems, but maybe in some cases it might not be possible to install it.
But that's only if you're selling the power back to the grid, right?
Well, hey, if you're
not
working with the utility, you have to have what's called an interconnection agreement. Anytime you have, and utilities require this for a couple of reasons. One, they have power sources that are added to their connection or added to the grid that they need to know about, right? And so this, of course, is on your side of the meter, the customer, the homeowner's side of the meter. But if there's any potential for that to backfeed to the grid, they really need to know about it. And they want to know about it. But then there's other places like Hawaii, for example. A lot of people have solar, but you cannot backfeed to the grid. It is not allowed. In fact, a lot of inverters now, Tesla included too, they have the ability to say, no, hard stop, do not backfeed to the grid. Not possible. Don't let it happen. Because you can imagine if like a big cloud comes over the Hawaiian island, and then the grid like goes out all of a sudden, because of all that backfeed, and it gets surged as soon as the cloud just goes away. So it's a relatively small grid, so it's very, susceptible to those types of fluctuations. So, they have to have a lot of these extra requirements put in there to allow everything to work and not have any large variations on the grid in general.
San Jose is Costa Rica similar? Because remember the last posting was like we installed 20,000 Powerwalls in Costa Rica. Are they similar to Hawaii on that? Do you know much?
With Hawaii, they have a lot of solar. There's a lot of benefits to doing solar because they want to get rid of diesel. They were doing a lot of diesel power generation because they're on an island. So getting fuel to that island, it's not as though it's coming from the port of LA and there's like plenty of ways for it to get here to there, and there's trains,
pipeline underwater. Not happening.
It's all got to get shipped there one way or another. So diesel is the easiest, quickest, simplest thing to ship there, and that's what they're doing. And it burns very dirty. It's not good for the environment, the local air quality. The indigenous people, the tourists, however you want to do it, the wildlife, they're all getting negatively affected by that. They wanted to get rid of that, and all sustainable. Costa Rica is a good example of highly. There's been multiple times in Costa Rican history where they were 100% renewable energy powered. And for long periods of time too. So because they have hydroelectric, they have solar, some of these things, but they're kind of transient. Like how much did it rain, or how much sun are we getting right now in this season? So Hawaii's done great at getting rid of the fossil fuel type because it's so expensive too to ship. You go look at the gas price in Hawaii, just look it up. It's insane. But that's why, again, they don't have any refineries there. They're not, pumping oil out of the ground anymore.
On exports.
100%, dependent on exports and the travel of those exports. So it's going one place only there. And, so it's expensive, but they were able to get around that with battery and solar, and, they've done a great job.
Okay. Now, recently, Elon has posted, and this basically kind of got us to do this episode, when you saw him posting, he mentioned the 30 kW of peak power output for the Powerwall 3 is what makes it so unique.
Yes.
What is he talking about on that? Because now I'm confused. I look at it went from 5.5 to 7.7 to 11.5. It's got a storage capacity of 13.5. You can string 4 of them together at the 11.5, which gives you your 46 kW. Where did this 30 kW of peak power output come from? What is he talking about?
Well, if you look at the 30 kilowatts, so it's kind of hard to say. You got 11.5 kilowatt discharge power continuous, right? But, and it can peak even higher than that. So, and that has to do with the load start capability, right? And so then you have multiple put together, you have a higher LRA capability, a higher continuous output capability by having multiple Powerwall 3s. So, I haven't done the math to figure out exactly what number it is. Either way, it's
pretty impressive.
It is impressive, and yes, it is capable of what he's saying, 100%. But is that the exact metric? And technically, you'd be a little bit more because you have 4 Powerwall 3s it can do more than that, but it's limited to a 200 amp system, and that's why you wouldn't get like a fit Powerwall 3. It wouldn't really make sense because it'd be limited anyways.
Okay. So I do have some asked questions here. It seems like guy's telling us that he's a California resident. He will be switching on his home battery to Powerwall. No, he says, will switching my home battery to Powerwall 3 mean I lose my NEM 2.0 status? And the answer to this question was yes. If you're a Californian utilities administer the NEM 2.0, they've indicated that any changes to the current approved system design that you already have in place following the April 14th, remember last year, April 14th was like a big cutoff on this, following April 14th, 2023, would mean that your interconnection applications are no longer valid. So you just talked about the interconnection agreement. And so I guess if you are changing to Powerwall 3, you will need to enroll in the new net billing tariff that California has with their utilities.
Starting over.
Yeah,
pretty much.
Like, I feel like we took like 2 steps back, maybe 5 steps back with this particular requirement. I don't know, but I'm really glad that Tesla is taking it upon itself to like, you know what, you guys can pass all the laws. We're just going to make products that are just generally better. But you can see the level of bureaucracy and the red tape that has to coexist with systems like this when they're enacting and they're preventing you to purchase these products because they have their own agenda. Right?
I mean, it's tough too because you start the legislation, it takes years to get that going and get all the political capital and everyone to agree upon it, and finally it goes, and then all of a sudden technology, Tesla just had like a good idea, and then within a year it's the product and it's out, and now all that legislation like cost of energy, separate metering for solar output, now that's like, well, we can't do that, it won't work because we've designed this so much better and more efficient, which is good, and everyone wants that, including Austin Energy. But meanwhile, all the regulation they set up doesn't allow this product to be compatible with those requirements. So, it's tough because everyone wants to push forward and get better. Legislation has to keep up with it. And
so policy and legislation they're basically laggards compared to Tesla. Are you serious?
Oh my God, how's that possible? Whoa.
All right, so we have a question from our audience member. I have Dave in Austin, Texas. Not David, but Dave in Austin, Texas. He says, is there a price difference between Powerwall 2 and Powerwall 3?
Yeah, I mean, there's a price difference with those.
We talked about that earlier,
but the reality is again, I think more about the use case. I mean, the price difference isn't going to be the reason you get Powerwall 2 or Powerwall 3. It's really going to be your use case that's going to dictate, getting one or the other.
That's a good point. And he says, can you integrate Powerwall 3 with legacy PV arrays? I have a 27 panel system with 2 strings into an existing 2 MPPT inverter.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, you would basically be throwing out that inverter that you have and then rewiring it directly to Powerwall 3. So yes, in that sense, it's compatible. Otherwise, the inverter that you have is not compatible with Powerwall 3.
Now, he mentioned he's got 2 string inverters.
Yes.
So would he have to buy 2 Powerwall 3s? Or does because I saw some kind of connection. Powerwall 3's got 4 inputs. So Powerwall 3 can literally take up to 4 string inverters?
Yeah, you
place it all into one unit?
4 different strings. And that's like one of the things that if you start looking at solar for your home, you can get different quotes from different people. Some, depending on your home, do you have shading? Because some parts of your roof might have shading on it during certain parts of the day. And if that's the case, then if you have a string inverter, like in the case of mine, I have a south-facing array and then a west-facing. And I have 2 different inverters, one for each array, which makes sense because depending upon where the sun is, how high in the sky, how much power it's getting, your solar output in a string situation is only going to be good as the weakest panel. So if you have one panel that's getting fully shaded by a branch, all of a sudden, that's it cuts off. Basically, it will stop producing solar for that string. Wow. That's why they created things like individual microinverters, which is a separate inverter for each panel. So if one panel is not getting anything, all the panels around it are great, then good news, all the panels around it are full output. If that one panel is not, it doesn't affect it. They're not it has no difference or weight on the other ones around it, which is good. But a lot of times what you can do is configure it for different strings. So it's based on each string. So if one string is on the west side of the home and that's getting some shading, but then the string on the south side is getting full sun and direct on.
Then it's going
Totally
to take
good.
that string.
It'll
and
take that
other one's going to suffer, but the other one.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a design thing, and
Okay.
that's why they did 4 different strings, so you
Got
could
it.
split it up a little bit. Because some people's homes, I mean, they have a complex roof. They have like 1 or 2 panels on the front, some on the back, some on the side. You want to put those on different strings. So and the Powerwall 3 is capable of doing that, splitting that up, and it's such a small percentage. So I took the training with Tesla, and one of the points they say is like the whole microinverters. It's certainly valuable and it makes sense in some cases, but there's a lot of downsides, and it's such a small percentage of the market that really needs or would be a really valuable use case for microinverters. I mean, it's out there, and if you install it, you can install it in your home, but you might not need it, right? And there are definitely situations that, like, okay, these people would benefit for having microinverters over Powerwall 3, inverters, in the way that a string inverter is set up.
Right.
That does happen, right? But that's such a small percentage, and Tesla's really focused. Like they said, hey, 200 amp, is the max it'll do. Yeah, there are houses that have more, but a large part of the market is 200 amp or less. So that's what they're focused on.
Right.
They go on what's the greatest impact we can make without creating like all these different products and all these different SKUs. So
okay. No, well, there you go, Dave. I hope we answered your question. As far as value conclusions, what we've seen is considerable decline in the number of Powerwall installation requests that have come through like our system over the past few months. And so, what will happen now, in your opinion, now that Tesla has released the Cybertruck with the vehicle-to-home power share, and how do you see that Powerwall option is still viable as a complementary option to the Cybertruck power share, or do you feel that Cybertruck, this power share stuff is such at its infancy, but it's so powerful of a technology that it may have the ability to cannibalize this? What's your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are that it still makes sense to get Powerwall, especially with Powerwall 3. Right now, like if I were getting Cybertruck and I was considering Powerwall 3 is what I would want to get with solar, right? And because, again, if you look at our other video we did recently about Cybertruck and PowerShare, it is not interactive with any solar. It will not. So in other words, if the grid goes out and you have a beautiful sunny day and your solar is creating all this energy, it will not be able to be used at all if you have PowerShare. It will not interact with it. It will not allow it to produce. It will only draw power from the Cybertruck. So the Cybertruck can't be charged by excess solar capacity in the event of a grid failure. So, but all that changes if you have Powerwall, right? Because Powerwall can act as a grid forming element. So it creates a grid. It's able to allow that solar to produce. It has the ability to store excess solar energy in the Powerwalls. It also has the ability to take the excess solar, potentially put it into the Cybertruck as well. So it has somewhere to go. Ultimately, this energy has to go somewhere, right? So that's what Powerwall acts as, kind of the traffic cop, if you will. Cybertruck PowerShare doesn't do that. It's not designed to do that. It's not meant to work in that way. But if you have Powerwall 3, first of all, it's extremely effective, efficient. It'll allow the solar to produce in the event of that grid failure. It'll allow you to get the most out of that solar. It'll allow you to store it in excess. So for when the sun is not shining, it'll be able to power you all night. And further, maybe it's a couple very cloudy days, you'll be good to go. You'll still be fine. You have not only the Cybertruck, but also the Powerwall 3 to back you up. So it's supplementary. So at the very least, if I had a Cybertruck and I was planning on using PowerShare, I would have at least a Powerwall 3 there as well, because when they come out with that software, which will be released, not yet, it's forthcoming,
still working.
Basically, the PowerShare will supplement the Powerwall. So if the Powerwall is not getting charged up, you want to keep powering your home, it'll take power from the Cybertruck and put it into your home. But then also, in the event of that grid failure, maybe it's an extended outage. You want to get power.
Go charge your Cybertruck a couple of miles down the road, and then come back and plug it.
Maybe, yeah, you could do that.
And your house doesn't skip a beat, right? Because it's got the Powerwall.
Yeah, assuming there's power down the street. But if there's not, then you got solar. You got, you could go for a long time, go forever. At that point, you have all that storage, great enough solar capacity, and then 20 kilowatt of solar capability. That's massive. That's
and Tesla had to design it that way intentionally, because they knew that if they did come up with it in any other way, it would cannibalize the Powerwall.
In fact,
that's not what their goal was.
You know what? That's a good point. That I just kind of made the connection in my head, because you asked, like, 4 Powerwall 3s. That's it. That's all you can do. Because you could do 10 Powerwall 2s previously. So the answer is not for 8 9, 10 Powerwall 3s, you get up to 4, maybe 1, and then you get your Cybertruck. Or you get your other Tesla, and which will have power share upcoming the next couple of years, and use that instead. It won't be just the Cybertruck with power share. Plus, of course, if you watch the other video again, I keep mentioning it, but honestly, it has a lot of good information that's pertinent.
We'll put it in the link below. You know how they always say. We'll put it in the link below.
It's in the link below.
It's not there now, but we will later.
I promise. It also, that's where like Ford and GM and others that have said that they're going to the North American charging standard, Tesla standard, they will have the ability to utilize power share and utilize that. So it won't be just Tesla vehicles, but again, any scenario where you have a long duration of outage and you need a lot of storage, the vehicle is the answer. It's not selling a bunch of Powerwalls. That's what I think Tesla is focused on, which is kind of good because you could think a lot of companies would be like, no, let's sell as many Powerwalls as we can. Let's just get it. Right. But they want to get as many Powerwalls in as many people's homes as possible. So how do they make it so it'll work? One Powerwall with Powerwall, and then they get all the right electric vehicles out there, which they know they're going to do. It's going to happen. It's only a matter of time, and then that'll supplement it. So that's the answer. That is. And the VPP,
I mean, only works as good as if a car's plugged in anyway. If it's, they have the power share feature, it doesn't work if the car's not plugged in. So stationary storage allows it to make sure that it's guaranteed. It's always there for that PPP if you're going that route, right? And you have the Tesla electric. Which is what they're doing here in Texas. So I think that's it. Look, thank you so much to our listeners and subscribers for your time today. I hope this episode's brought to you guys a little bit more value to our day. It has on mine, David. I'm sure it has on you. You just mentioned it. Look, I love you guys, and yes, we can't do this without you all. Again, we appreciate you joining us today. Go ahead and click the thumbs up icon below, share, comment, subscribe to our channel if you think we earned it. And remember, folks, thanks again for charging up with us today. Keep in mind, you can always find us at smartchargeamerica.com. And if you can't charge, you can't drive. We'll see you next time. Cheers, guys. All right. It's pretty nice.
I know. Good stuff.
Pretty nice, man. All right. Woo! Here we go.